November 1095. A pope stands before a crowd in a field in Clermont, France, and lights a fire that will burn for 4 years and reshape 3 continents. Pope Urban II calls for holy war. Take up the cross, he says, and march east. Reclaim Jerusalem from the Turks, save your Byzantine brothers, and earn forgiveness for every sin you have ever committed. The crowd does not simply cheer, they scream. Deus vult, they chant. God wills it. Within months, tens of thousands answer the call. But the first wave is not knights. It is peasants. Farmers, debtors, the desperate, and the devout, led by a preacher named Peter the Hermit, riding a donkey, armed with faith and little else. They march through the Balkans, with almost no supplies, no discipline, no military plan. Along the way, they raid, they starve, they massacre Jewish communities in the Rhineland in scenes of horrifying violence that have nothing to do with Jerusalem and everything to do with hatred let loose. By the time they cross into Anatolia, they are exhausted and starving. The Seljuk Turks are waiting. At Sivato, the peasants' crusade is annihilated. Most are killed or enslaved in a single morning. Peter the Hermit survives. He was not even present for the slaughter. The dream of an easy holy war dies with his followers. But behind the peasants comes something far more dangerous. The princes, Godfrey of Bouillon, Bohemond of Taranto, a Norman adventurer as cunning as he is ambitious, Raymond of Toulouse, wealthy, proud, and devout, Robert of Normandy, son of William the Conqueror. These are professional soldiers, and behind them march tens of thousands of knights and infantry, a real army, moving through hostile territory toward a city they have never seen. Their first target is Nicaea, a fortified Seljuk capital. The siege is brutal, grinding medieval warfare at its ugliest. Starvation, disease, catapults hurling the severed heads of the dead over the walls to break enemy morale. Nicaea falls in 1097, but not to the Crusaders alone. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios, whose plea for help started this whole enterprise, quietly negotiates the city's surrender behind their backs. The Crusaders get plunder. The Emperor gets the city. It is the first sign of a partnership already rotting from within. Then comes Dorylaeum. The Crusader army, strung out and vulnerable, is ambushed by the Seljuk Sultan Kilij Arslan. For hours, it looks like total disaster, arrows falling like rain, the vanguard nearly overrun. But the Crusader knights hold the line, buy time, and the rest of the army arrives to crush the Turkish forces in a pincer. It is a narrow, bloody survival, and it teaches the Crusaders something important. They can win if they stay together. Ahead of them lies the real test: Antioch, one of the greatest fortified cities in the world, walls so massive that 400 towers guard its perimeter. The Crusaders arrive in October 1097 and settle in for what should be a quick siege. It becomes a nightmare that lasts 8 months. Winter sets in. Supplies run out. Men eat their horses, then their leather boots, then nothing at all. Desertions begin. Even leaders slip away in the night. Disease spreads through the camp. Thousands die without ever drawing a sword. And then, in June 1098, Bohemond finds a way in. A bribed guard, a secret gate, a betrayal executed in the dead of night. The Crusaders pour into Antioch and take the city in a bloodbath. They have barely caught their breath when a new army arrives outside the walls. Kerboga, the powerful Atabeg of Mosul, has come with an enormous relief force. And now the Crusaders, who just captured the city, are the ones under siege. Trapped, starving, surrounded, they are on the edge of total collapse. Then a peasant named Peter Bartholomew claims a vision. Buried beneath the floor of Antioch's cathedral, he says, lies the Holy Lance, the very spear that pierced Christ on the cross. Digging begins. A blade is found. Whether it is genuine or a piece of theater staged to save a starving army almost does not matter. Belief is the only weapon left, and it works. Filled with something between faith and madness, the Crusaders march out of Antioch to face an army that vastly outnumbers them. And Carabogza's coalition, plagued by internal rivalries, breaks. The Crusaders win one of the most improbable victories of the entire campaign. Antioch is theirs. But it costs them something else, a bitter falling out with Byzantium and with each other. Bohemond claims the city for himself instead of returning it to the emperor as promised. The alliance that started this crusade is now in pieces. Yet still, the survivors push on toward the one goal that matters more than politics: Jerusalem. In June 1099, after nearly 3 years of marching, starving, and dying, the Crusader army, reduced from perhaps 60,000 at the start to as few as 15,000 fighting men, finally seize the walls of the holy city. They fall to their knees and weep. The siege is short but desperate. Water is scarce, the defenders are well prepared, and the Crusaders are running out of everything but conviction. They build siege towers in full view of the walls, drag timber for miles, and on July 15th, 1099, breach the defenses. What follows is one of the darkest chapters in the entire history of the Crusades. The city's population, Muslim, Jewish, and even some Eastern Christian, is massacred in scenes so brutal that even chroniclers on the Crusaders' own side describe streets running with blood. Jerusalem falls. The First Crusade, against every reasonable expectation, has succeeded. A ragged coalition of starving, disease-ridden, endlessly quarreling men has marched 3,000 miles and taken the most contested city on earth. Godfrey of Bouillon is offered the crown of Jerusalem. He refuses the title of king in the city where Christ wore a crown of thorns, and instead calls himself simply defender of the Holy Sepulchre. The Crusader states that rise from this campaign will last less than 200 years. But the First Crusade itself becomes legend almost immediately, proof to medieval Europe that faith could move armies across the world and topple empires. It began with a sermon in a field in France. It ended with fire in the streets of Jerusalem. And between those 2 points lies one of the most brutal, improbable, and consequential campaigns in human history.